Now then, is questioning the imposition of seemingly totalitarian measures, lockdown, Ministry of Cine Walks, face masks for healthy people, etc., is that kind of questioning necessarily really alternative media circus, David Icke style woo nonsense? Surely it's not woo and far out and nonsensy to be just looking at the actual players in the game, the characters that we see on telly, basically the simple financial reality of the politicians, the lead scientists, and the global financial situation. That's not too woo-woo, and questioning basically the simple maths using the official stats, looking at how they are kind of presented out of proportion, created mass fear when you look at them kind of in perspective, there's nothing really mega special going on this year compared to past years. When it comes to viruses, although there is clearly something going on with restrictions, shall we say. Surely it's not a massive stretch of the imagination to question politicians and what's put out by the telly. Right, it's not a stretch of the imagination for them to be a bit dodgy, is it? It's not a stretch of the imagination when you hear that Bill Gates funds Imperial College and Johns Hopkins University, that are the major players in the narrative of this epidemiology we must lock down thing. Check it out, links below. It's not a stretch to suspect some financial corruption there, is it? Yeah. And the financial corruption doesn't necessarily need to involve secret meetings behind the scenes. It could just be the fact that the funding providers, and if you look at how Bill Gates and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation works, they fund a whole range of specific departments of specific universities, and then they've got their pick, in tandem with whoever they're working with at the WHO and stuff. They've got their pick of which departments are coming up with the kind of nonsense that they want to make use of. Simple, Imperial College, yeah, they've got this lockdown idea. Tell you what, we'll select them to be the voice of the WHO and not that other university over there in Scotland or Alabama or somewhere that have a different idea of how to deal with this pandemic preparedness scenario. It's not a stretch to think that there's some level of financial corruption with the World Health Organization, seeing as they're busy mates with the World Economic Forum and the World Bank, and the IMF, that's funding countries loads of money if they lock down. Kind of bribery, really, in a way. And the World Economic Forum is rolling out this great reset, or it's on about it anyway, and it's a mile deep of planning. The globalist health authorities have been planning pandemic preparedness for years. It is quite surprising that the orders from the Global Pandemic Monitoring Board to implement pandemic preparedness involving all institutions in 50 something nations and all the public, it is surprising that those orders have been followed by the governments that signed the agreement in 2005. Yeah. There's a link below to a Global Pandemic Monitoring Board report from last year where these orders are stated quite clearly. It's one of many remarkable pandemic planning coincidences. And how come, you might ask, these governments that signed up to this deal in 2005, how come they follow these orders and stick to the arrangement, but seem to ignore some other arrangements that they've made. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm just a layman. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes for one deal to be more important than the other, but you know, that's, who knows. I'm just, like I say, I'm just a fella, but it's all a bit weird, and that's quite clear that that's what's going on. Don't worry, I'll get to that simple maths in a minute. Going back to the stretches, it's not a stretch to wonder why this Neil Furguson character, who's time and time again with his rubbishy computer simulations, he's programmed himself, possibly in his back bedroom when his mum let him stay up late once. He's got these computer simulations, they've been wrong time and time again. So his retest reliability in scientific terms is just rubbish, isn't it? Why is he the golden boy of the World Health Organization? Is it because he works at Imperial College Epidemiology Department? Not saying the rest of the college is dodgy. But anyway, that department, that's funded by Bill Gates, who is one of the major funders of the World Health Organization. That's all a bit mad, isn't it? And the same goes for these other high priest oracles of science that are put onto the world stage, these government scientists. Other researchers have gone and looked at the financial dealings and all their past job situation and everything, and they're just embroiled in the big pharma and the Bill Gates money and all that stuff. It's a bit shocking, really, but certainly these are the last people we trust. It's just the trick show relies on people seeing them as some kind of high priest, guru, oracles of truth, and they're either idiots or total liars or both. Anyway, the questioning is simple. It's just maths. It's just maths. The number of people dying every day in a nation the size of France, England, Spain, Germany, that kind of size nation, about 1,500 people die every day in the natural course of things. So when there's 400 for a couple of weeks, that's quite bad, yeah. But that's just for a couple of weeks. The rest of the time, there's sod all going on, really. Come on. The number of deaths over the whole period of this malarkey, plus the number of flu deaths, is less than it was for the same period of time in recent years. Yeah, it's worse than some years, it's not as bad as some others. So, come on, there's nothing special going on. There's no need. It's just a massive, overhyped, over-exaggerated risk assessment. And they don't give you the numbers of the risk assessment. They don't tell people, oh, you got more chance of dying in a car crash today than you have of catching COVID and dying. Generally, unless you've got a proper serious condition, or you're on your last legs, etc. It's simple, it's just maths. It's the fear and the hype and we need to do this, we need to do that. The lockdown stuff, it's completely out of proportion when you look at the maths in a kind of global stats and kind of, how things work out over the year and what the usual mortality rate is. When you look at things in that way, there's not much going on. There is not a massive cataclysm. There's not an extinction level event. There's some questioning about how the deaths are recording, but that's not completely a lie or anything, as some of the alternative media circus say. Maybe there's a bit of slight exaggeration, should we say. Nothing new in the world of politics there. But taking their stats as they are, the trick, the media spin and the politicians spin is making those death numbers somehow seem like, it's justification for everyone to totally panic and not just let's look after the old and the vulnerable. it's no stretch of the imagination to, to look at telly and think, well, this is a bit of a distorted view of reality that they're giving us here. It's no stretch of the imagination to suspect that politicians lie and spin and they're not really doing what they say, and they're not really saying what they do. It's, nothing new in that, is there? No surprise. Nobody trusts politicians and telly very much, but suddenly they do. It's a bit weird, that. Just seems to be because they've got some scientists. Well, they look at where the money comes from for these specific scientists, yeah? If you go down to your local uni, chances are they're going to be nice scientists. They're not going to be corrupt and devious and a bit, dodgy. Governments lie, and these particular chosen government scientists are either the biggest idiots ever known in the world of science, or they're nasty, mischievous, snivelling liars too. They've got shares, they used to work for Big Pharma. It's a ring. Have a look at Event 201 and you'll see the corruption game there. It's all big tech dudes, big media dudes, all representatives of Big Pharma, and then there's a few government dudes and a few government scientists, yeah? That's not people, really, that we should be trusting. Come on. It's a stretch that from weapons of mass destruction and that big lie, they've gone to a massive exaggeration lie that locks half the world down. It's absolutely mental. But that's what seems to be going on, and it's what seems to have been prepared in all these planning exercises that have gone on. Links below. Massive exaggeration. It's insane. And yet, old people's home, stuffy environments where, people catch things. It's not good for people whose days are numbered. Yeah. That's the place where things need to get sorted when there's a nasty flu going round. Simple, really. Same goes for other vulnerable people, really, doesn't it? People with health conditions, disabled people, they're losing out in this show. They're not being looked after. Common sense, the kind of common sense our grandparents had, and what most nice doctors would probably be suggesting right now is not what we are seeing whatsoever at all. What we are seeing looks a bit like fascism, and if it looks like it, well, maybe it is. Maybe. It's a bit sinister, really, isn't it? Anyway. Then, the tests. The officials themselves, like Boris, Alexander de Pfeffel Johnson, he admits the tests are only 7% accurate. That's why when people get off a plane, and no, I don't like planes, people get off them and they're quarantined for 2 weeks automatically instead of doing the test because the tests are rubbish. Yet, at the same time, people are locked down on the basis of a test, and people who were near people that get locked down on the basis of a test. That's pretty fascist, to be honest, isn't it? And have you heard the one about Tanzania? In Tanzania, the authorities there, suspecting that this was all a bit dodgy, basically they got some test kits, some WHO test kits that go off to the WHO approved test centre, and they decided, well, we'll test some other things and see what results we got. So they tested a goat, some engine oil, a few other things, and a pawpaw fruit. And, most of that stuff came back positive. So it kind of makes you pause for thought, doesn't it? So, just thought I'd share that with you. It's not very David-like, really. Yeah, I have seen some absolute nonsense in the alternative media circus. But there's some good stuff out there. If you check out Logical Annie, her channel's very down to earth. Got some really good information there. With a pinch of salt, because apparently they're a bit of a limited hangout, whatever that really is. You could check out UK Column. They present information very down to earth manner, etc. No woo-woo theories. Same with Peerless Reads. He's a maths buffing. Good stuff. There's a lot of doctors speaking out. Some of them are a bit woo-woo slightly. Yeah, one of them's got some nonsense thing about viruses don't exist. And quite a few people have fallen for that. Ugh, just crazy. But there's a lady from New Zealand who talks a lot of sense. I can check out her name if anybody makes any comments below and requests that. Donc voilà quoi. Ciao.